Dave Chappelle didn't walk away from $50 million. He ran for his life. And once you hear why, you'll never look at Hollywood the same again. They made $500 million off Dave Chappelle, then called him crazy when he asked for his share. Here's the truth they never wanted us to know. What if I told you Dave Chappelle didn't quit? He escaped. And the people who tried to silence him almost succeeded. Forget the $50 million story you've been told. That was a lie. The real number was 10 times bigger. Let me show you why Dave vanished. Every time an artist becomes too powerful in Hollywood, something happens to them. Chappelle saw the pattern and ran before he became the next headline. Before you judge Dave Chappelle for walking away from money, listen to this 30 seconds. If you still think he's crazy after this, then maybe we're the crazy ones. One day, he was the most loved comedian in the world. The next day, he was gone. No goodbye. No explanation. And the truth behind that disappearance is darker than you think. He said no. And within 24 hours, the media turned him into a drug addict and a lunatic. Ask yourself, who is that kind of power? Imagine building a $500 million empire, and the moment you ask for your share, they try to destroy your name, your career, and your sanity. Mariah Carey, Martin Lawrence, Britney Spears, Kanye West, Dave Chappelle. Notice the pattern? The moment a celebrity becomes uncontrollable, the same script plays out. If Dave Chappelle's reputation wasn't already being torn apart in front of the world, the final blow came when his show made around $500 million, and the people in power refused to honor the deal that said he was entitled to half. Instead of paying him what he was owed, they claimed he earned too much for the contract to still count. He left without warning. No wife, no kids, no one knew where he was going. He just disappeared. Sounds extreme, right? But once you understand what was happening behind the scenes, it makes sense. Calling someone crazy is the easiest way to silence them. It's dismissive. It avoids having to face the truth. People say, I don't get them, so they must be crazy. But the truth is, most of these people aren't crazy at all. They're strong. The environment around them is what's twisted. For years, the public believed Dave ran away from a $50 million deal because he couldn't handle the pressure. But that's not the real story. According to Katt Williams and resurfaced documents, the real number wasn't $50 million, it was closer to $500 million. That's $500 million generated by The Chappelle Show for Comedy Central. And based on the contract, Dave was supposed to receive half of whatever the show earned. But when it came time for him to get paid, the narrative suddenly flipped. Oprah's show painted him as paranoid. Comedy Central acted like they were doing him a favor when they offered him a lowball deal. And when he refused to play along, they didn't just try to take his show, they tried to take him down. He made them $500 million. They offered him $50 million. And when Dave questioned it, he said, "What will my fans think when they learn you offered me only 10% of what I made you?" Their response? By the time you get home, the public will believe you're a crazy drug addict. Back in the early 2000s, TV was changing. Reality shows were taking over, sitcoms were dying, and networks were desperate for something new. That's when Dave arrived with The Chappelle Show, and the entire industry shifted. Week after week, he delivered genius, comedy that exposed racism, politics, Hollywood hypocrisy, all while making people laugh until they cried. From Clayton Bigsby, the blind black white supremacist, to sketches calling out the government and media. Dave wasn't afraid to make anyone uncomfortable, including the people writing his checks. The show exploded. DVD sales went crazy. Comedy Central's ratings shot through the roof. The network made so much money off Chappelle that he basically built their brand. But while the show was earning hundreds of millions, Dave was only seeing a tiny slice of it. And that's where the story turns. Once the profits hit a certain level, the rules suddenly changed. Dave's contract stopped applying, or so they claimed. He wasn't allowed to speak about what was happening. But Katt Williams did. Katt said the show cleared $500 million, and Dave's contract guaranteed him half, around $250 million. But Comedy Central told him something unbelievable. The contract didn't count anymore because the earnings were too high. Imagine creating the most successful show a network ever had. They get rich off your name, and when it's time to pay you what you're owed, they move the goalposts. That's when the so-called $50 million deal appeared. But it wasn't a real deal, it was hush money. Their message was simple: take this small cut and keep working, or walk away with nothing. Dave saw the trap. He knew that once he signed, they would own everything: his show, his image, his voice, his creativity. And when artists refuse to be controlled, when they ask for what they rightfully earned, that's when the smear campaigns begin. As Katt Williams put it, they destroy your name before they destroy your contract. And Katt Williams wasn't blowing things out of proportion. Anyone who lived through that era remembers how things unfolded. After the contract drama with Comedy Central, Dave didn't just take a break, he left the country and flew to Africa without telling his family. Now ask yourself, why would a man who had everything vanish like that, unless he felt his safety was at risk? Not career danger, real physical danger. When Dave came back and sat down with Oprah, he revealed something disturbing. It wasn't just that people called him crazy. They were actively pressuring him to take antipsychotic medication. Dave said, "I got ahead of schedule and I bounced. I didn't tell anybody where I was going. The whole time they were trying to convince me I was insane. They wanted me to take psychotic medication." Yes, Dave admitted he was stressed. Who wouldn't be, standing in the middle of a storm like that? But what shook him wasn't the stress itself. It was the people who kept insisting he was insane. Because deep down, he felt those same people knew the truth about what was happening behind the scenes. And that's what made the situation terrifying. He realized the medication wasn't being pushed to help him heal or rest. It was being used as a tool to silence him, control him, or destroy his credibility if he ever chose to speak up. Once someone is labeled mentally unstable, everything they say becomes easy to dismiss. And that's the danger. Dave understood the trap. If he took those pills and then later tried to tell the world what was really going on, everyone would respond with, "Well, he's mentally ill. You can't take him seriously." It was a setup. A quiet one. The kind that's hard to prove, but easy to use against you. He described how unsettling it felt to have people constantly hovering, repeating the same narrative, trying to convince him that he was losing his mind. Imagine waking up every day with handlers, executives, and industry friends whispering the same story into your ear, not because it was true, but because they needed you to believe it. That kind of manipulation can break a person. But Dave didn't break. He saw the pattern early and made a choice most people would be too afraid to make. He ran. What most fans didn't understand at the time was that Dave wasn't running for money, he was running for his life. Running from a system that wanted ownership over more than just his show. They wanted ownership over him, his voice, his identity, his sanity. And as extreme as that sounds, Hollywood history shows this isn't rare, it's routine. When comedians, musicians, or actors hit a certain level of influence and begin questioning how things work, the industry doesn't negotiate, it neutralizes. First, they try to embarrass you. If that doesn't work, they try to fix your image with medication or mental institutions. And if you still don't fall in line, that's when things get darker, more permanent. People call it conspiracy. But look at the pattern. It repeats too consistently to be coincidence. When the smear campaign fails and the public won't turn against the artist, the narrative shifts to tragedy. A private plane crash, a sudden overdose, a drowning alone in a bathtub, a mysterious suicide from someone who had everything. And because the seeds of insanity were planted early, the public rarely questions it. Once the world believes you're unstable, any ending sounds believable. So the fact that Dave saw the signs early enough to escape and live to return is rare. Extremely rare. Because the pressure behind the scenes had to have been unbearable. You don't leave your wife, your children, your country, or your entire life behind on impulse. You do that only when the fear outweighs the consequences of disappearing. Dave later explained that he walked away because the situation had become spiritually and mentally toxic. Comedy, a craft he loved since childhood, had turned into a battlefield with hidden weapons aimed at him. And part of what saved him wasn't just fear, it was intuition. A gut instinct telling him, if you stay here, you won't survive. The truth is, we have evidence of how this system treats those who refuse to obey. From pop stars to rappers to actors, the script rarely changes. First, they sweet-talk you with fame, deals, and promises. Then come the contracts full of traps. Once you wake up and ask for fairness, they label you difficult, crazy, or dangerous. And if you still don't bend, they take everything. That's why many artists break. Some disappear into addiction. Some never return the same. Others simply don't return at all. Dave Chappelle did something almost no one else has done. He left, protected his soul, and came back with ownership. But survival came with a cost. Fans who grew up watching Chappelle's show sometimes say he isn't the same bold, untouchable, fearless comedian he once was. Today, his jokes feel more guarded, more strategic, more careful. Instead of tearing down the system, he often dodges it or chooses safer targets. Some people criticize that shift. Others understand it. Because once you've seen how the machine really operates, once you've been hunted by it, why would you poke the beast again? Maybe survival changes a person. Maybe staying alive means softening the edges that once made you dangerous. Maybe the price of returning is learning to balance truth with caution. And maybe that's the point. Hollywood doesn't just take your money or your career, it tries to take your fire. The part of you that wants to expose the truth. Because a silent survivor is more useful than a loud revolutionary. So yes, Dave came back. Yes, he reclaimed his name, his success, and his power. But the version of Dave who walked away from $500 million, who exposed the system without blinking, that version may have been forced to evolve in order to stay alive. And that leaves us with a question. Did Dave Chappelle save his life by leaving, but lose a piece of his fearless voice in the process? Now I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Dave's life was truly in danger when he left for Africa? And is the Dave we see now the same man we saw during the Chappelle Show era, or did surviving the industry reshape him and his comedy forever? Drop your thoughts below and brace yourself for what comes next, because this story only gets deeper. Then he shared a moment that says everything. He showed up to work one day, and where his office used to be, there was a wall. No explanation. Later, he learned they told others he requested it, which he never did. And just like that, the tone around Dave flipped. Overnight, the media went from calling him a genius to calling him a drug addict and a lunatic. Suddenly, every news outlet had the same script. Dave Chappelle rejects $50 million. Dave Chappelle escapes to Africa. Dave Chappelle suffers mental breakdown. It wasn't gossip, it was a planned PR smear campaign. Dave later explained that this shift started when he questioned certain skits and refused to play roles he felt were harmful or disrespectful. The moment he stopped being easy to manage, the narrative changed. They didn't want people to see the truth, that he walked away because of the conditions, not the money. As he told Oprah, "I wasn't walking away from $50 million. I was walking away from the circumstances that came with it." Dave had been in the industry since age 14. He had seen this pattern before. He even brought up examples. Mariah Carey signs a $100 million deal. Months later, she's suddenly labeled crazy. Martin Lawrence reaches the peak of his career, then he's running through the streets yelling, "They're trying to kill me." We hear these stories again and again, and if you pay attention, they never happen randomly. These breakdowns, scandals, and mental health crises always seem to strike right at the moment an artist gains real power, real influence, or real independence. It's almost like the industry has an invisible line. Once you cross it, once you know too much or become too difficult to control, something mysterious happens that knocks you off your throne. And that's what makes these stories so suspicious. The pattern is too consistent to ignore. Artists work their whole lives to reach the point where they finally have leverage, money, fame, ownership, or a voice that can actually change things. But the second they get close to having true freedom, the narrative around them suddenly flips. The public is told they're unstable, they're out of control, they're a danger to themselves. And once that label sticks, everything they say afterward is dismissed. Think about it, if an artist exposes corruption before the crazy label, people listen. But if they expose corruption after being labeled unstable, most of the world just shrugs and calls it delusion. The label becomes a shield that protects the industry from accountability. And it becomes a cage that the artist can't escape. Mariah Carey wasn't the only one. Martin Lawrence wasn't the only one. We've seen it with Britney Spears, with Kanye West, with Amanda Bynes, and with Dave Chappelle. It's like the industry has a 3-step formula. Step 1, build you up. They hype you, reward you, and give you access. You're useful. Step 2, break you down. The moment you question the system, or the moment you want ownership or control, they paint you as difficult, angry, or mentally unstable. Step 3, take everything back. Once the public believes you lost your mind, the industry can legally and financially strip you of your work, your royalties, your voice, and no one will fight for you because everyone believes you're the problem. That's why these breakdowns always happen when an artist is on the edge of a new level, a level where they become more self-aware, independent, and less controllable. When Mariah signed that $100 million deal, she became the highest-paid female artist. That level of money shifts power. Suddenly she could make demands, call shots, and decide the terms. And then, almost overnight, she was too emotional, unstable, having a breakdown. The media repeated the same script until the public believed it. With Martin Lawrence, he was one of the most influential Black comedians and actors of the 90s, starring in hit films, leading TV shows, and shaping culture. At the height of his success, he publicly said, "They're trying to kill me," but instead of investigating who they were, the media treated it like a joke, a meltdown, a Hollywood cliché. Why is it that when artists cry out for help or warn us about something darker, their words are never taken seriously? Because by the time they speak up, their credibility has already been destroyed. This is why Dave Chappelle leaving wasn't just a random choice, it was survival. He saw the same pattern beginning in his life, and he left before the narrative could fully trap him. He said he'd heard the stories long before it happened to him. These weren't rumors. These were cautionary tales he watched play out right in front of him during his years in the industry. He saw what happened to artists who crossed that invisible line. He saw how fame turns into a weapon once you stop playing along. And when he realized the same machinery was being turned on him, he made the only move that protects a person in that position. He got out. And that's what makes this pattern so disturbing. It's not just about fame or pressure or mental health. It's about control. Artists who stay compliant, who play the game, who don't question anything, they remain celebrated, protected, and praised. But artists who think for themselves, who want ownership, who speak about exploitation, they get labeled, silenced, or removed. The timing is never a coincidence. It's a warning, a message to everyone watching. This is what happens when you stop obeying. When Oprah asked Dave if he lost his mind, he said, "Not exactly. I wasn't crazy, but it was incredibly stressful." Because once the crazy label sticks, it becomes a weapon. Headlines finish the job. Your career, reputation, and credibility evaporate. It's the same playbook used on Katt, Britney, Kanye, and so many others. Step 1. Push back against the people controlling you. Step 2. Get labeled unstable. Step 3. Watch everything you built get taken away. And honestly, what happened to Dave is considered the best-case outcome. Because if the smear campaign fails, if the public doesn't fall for the crazy label, or if the artist is too loved to fully cancel, that's when things usually get darker. Hollywood has a quiet way of removing people permanently. As Katt Williams said, in Hollywood, a lot of people come up missing. And when you listen to how he describes it, you understand why. There's a pattern. If they can't control you, they try to traumatize you. And if that fails, they erase you. And the story always looks the same on the news. A strange plane crash. An overdose. A random drowning in a bathtub. And sadly, once the media has already convinced the public that someone is unstable, nobody questions the accident. People shrug and say, well, they were losing it anyway. We've watched this happen to artists who start speaking out about contracts, exploitation, and the people behind the curtain. One moment they're exposing the truth, the next they're gone, wrapped in a tragic headline and a neat explanation. So when you think about Dave, the fact that he not only rejected the $50 million, but left the country without telling his wife, that tells you the pressure behind the scenes was far worse than anyone knew. You don't flee to another continent unless you truly fear for your life. Which makes it a miracle that Dave walked away alive, with his mind intact, and later came back on his own terms. We've seen the playbook 100 times. Smear your name. Gaslight you. Push pills on you. Twist your contract. Strip you of your work and identity. Most artists don't survive that. Some break. Some disappear. Some never return the same. Dave didn't fold. He refused to play their game, called it out for what it was, and walked away from everything. And yes, he eventually returned stronger, richer, respected. But there's another side people talk about. Some fans who followed him since the early Chappelle Show days feel he's not the same. His comedy now, it's different. It feels more cautious. He rarely swings at the system the way he once did. And often, he aims his jokes downward instead of upward. He once fearlessly exposed the machine. Today, it feels like he measures every word. But maybe that's the price of surviving. Maybe the system doesn't just try to silence you financially, it tries to soften you. So even if you come back, you don't come back ready to burn the house down again. Dave survived. He's wealthy. He owns his legacy. But the version of Dave who walked away from $500 million with no hesitation, the man who poked the bear with no fear, that Dave might never fully return. So now I want to hear your take. Do you believe Dave Chappelle's life was actually in danger back then? Is that why he escaped to Africa? And what about today? Do you think the Dave we see on stage now is the same man from the Chappelle Show era? Or did surviving the system change him and his comedy? Share your thoughts in the comments, and stick around for the next story.